Hi everyone, attorney Rachel Kelley here with another Family Law Friday. This week, I'll be answering the question of what can I do to make my divorce easier? So I actually think I could probably talk about this topic for about an hour, but I'm just gonna say 3 things today that I think can make any divorce easier. So the first thing that I actually wrote this in my notes for today, I wrote, hire a freaking lawyer. So obviously I'm a divorce lawyer, so of course I'm going to tell you need to hire a lawyer. But the reality is, I see a lot of people who get into the process of the divorce, think they can handle it on their own. They don't strategize out what they're doing in the case, and sometimes they end up with really bad outcomes, or they just prolong their process because they didn't know what they were doing. So I like to, compare this situation to what you might do if you had, something going on with the pipes in your house. So it totally makes sense to me that if you had, one leaky pipe, you might go on YouTube and try to figure out how to fix it and try to fix it on your own. But then what happens if the pipe keeps leaking? And now the leak is bigger. And now all of a sudden you're starting to flood your basement, right? And then you finally bring someone in to fix the problem. And now you're looking at a huge bill with a plumber and maybe other professionals to try to undo something that maybe you could have fixed really inexpensively the first time because you could have just called someone in to just look at what was a leaky pipe. So that same thing is true in divorce, right? So I always recommend, even if you think that you won't need an attorney, it is 100% worth it to have a strategy session with an attorney from the very beginning to make sure that you aren't accidentally doing anything to harm yourself, and to make sure that you are really, doing what is best for you and for your family, and that you can be sure that you don't take a divorce process and turn it into a years-long process because you didn't know what you're doing. I have actually seen situations where people have tried to file for divorce on their own over a period of years, and they've been unsuccessful at actually completing it because they never knew how they were supposed to resolve the next step. And so the court would constantly just dismiss the case. And I hate to see that for people because there is a waiting period. And so ultimately, you could just spend a little bit of money from the beginning to have someone analyze and determine, this is the scope of your plumbing problem, and this is how much, you're going to need to spend to fix it and to make this house whole again. So speaking of making the house whole again, that kind of goes to my second tip, which is I always encourage my clients to think about what they want their life to look like after their divorce is final, and to focus on that vision and that life rather than focusing on, the current fight that they might be having with their spouse. I just find that to be super important because the reality is that going through a divorce is the equivalent of experiencing a death in terms of your brain chemistry and your psychology. And I think that sometimes people get so caught up and focused on, the process of potential litigation in divorce, or the nitty-gritty minutia of who's going to take the china and who's going to have the silverware. And they really don't take the time to sit down and think, is what I'm agreeing to going to work for me moving forward? Like, am I going to be able to afford to pay my rent? Am I going to, be able to retire when I want to based on what I'm agreeing to? What does that look like? Where am I going to live? What kind of free time am I going to have that I maybe didn't have before? So what am I going to do with that free time? So those are definitely the kinds of things that I encourage people to think about during their divorce and at the beginning of their divorce. And that also kind of relates to my third thing that you can do to make your divorce easier. And I apologize because if you're a client of mine, you will have heard this before. Go to therapy. So I say to my clients all the time, you know, lawyers are great people. Many family lawyers, if not every family lawyer I know, became a family lawyer because they like people, because they want to help people, because we see our, profession and our vocation as family lawyers as one of the most sort of noble subsets of law, because instead of, helping Bank of America sue Chase, I get to help, Joe and Jane figure out what makes sense for them for their custody arrangement for their child. And to me, that's really important and it really matters. But what I'm not trained in is helping you digest your emotions and figuring out how to manage those emotions in a way that is, best for you and your children moving forward. That's what therapists are for. And I routinely say to my clients, I am a lot more expensive than a therapist and a lot less qualified. And unfortunately, there is no insurance that will cover your divorce lawyer's fees, but there is insurance for therapy. And the reality is that if you have most insurance plans, you're going to have at least something like 6 to 10 sessions that are going to be covered under your plan. So if you're thinking about divorce, if you're struggling with that idea, or if you're currently going through a custody dispute or going through a divorce, then most assuredly, the best thing you can do for yourself is find a therapist that you like. Go to therapy. Find someone that you can share that load with in terms of unburdening yourself of all the emotions that are going to take place during that disruption to your family. Like I mentioned before, divorce is like a death. You grieve the loss of your marriage or the loss of your relationship extremely similarly as to how you grieve the loss of a person that's very important to you, as if they had died. And so that is definitely the type of life event for which there is absolutely no shame in going to therapy and getting some help so that you can be your best you for yourself, for your children, for the rest of your family, for your career and your job, and for your future and your new life, to make that new life you've been dreaming about the best that it possibly can be. So, like I said, I could talk about this topic for ages. If you liked this topic and you want to see me do more videos about how to make your divorce easier, just leave me a comment and I'll consider adding it to the docket, and maybe we can do a whole series on that in the spring. As always, if you have any questions about divorce or a custody dispute or anything I've raised in this video, please give our office a call. We're here to help.